The Hunt, which is directed by Craig Zobel, who made Compliance. Do you remember this? I think you did an interview for Compliance about, it was based on a true story, well, it's been inspired by a true story of a prank phone call in which a woman is held, she's working in an establishment, there's a prank phone call, they say that they're the police, and it becomes this kind of really sort of nasty, abusive thing, and it's about how people, if they believe they're acting on authority, will do some terrible things. And I went back to look at my review of the film after, I think you'd interviewed somebody to do with the film.
Yes,
anyway.
I think you're right.
And I said that my problem was, this was the phrase I said, it takes a better filmmaker to take this subject and do it in a way that's not exploitative. So now we have The Hunt, which is a satirical thriller, which, it's funny, we were talking before about Bacurau, which has at least an element of Most Dangerous Game in it. Most Dangerous Game just kind of is the archetype. Some people consider it to be like the most popular short story of all time, and certainly in terms of cinema, it turns up again and again and again. If you think of things like Series 7, The Contenders, or The Hunger Games, or Battle Royale, they're all versions of that kind of hunting humans for sport story that's that. So we start with close-ups on a phone with text messages between unseen people saying, did you see what our idiot-in-chief just did? Doesn't it? I can't believe it. I can't wait for the manor so we can hunt some deplorables. So there's that's the setup on the phone. Then a bunch of people who, broadly speaking, fall under that definition. Remember, deplorables was a term that was used by, I think it was the Hillary Clinton campaign, to describe, the opposition, that then became a sort of very, very toxic term. A group of people who broadly seem to fit into that group wake up, and having don't know how they got there in what appears to be Arkansas, and then find themselves hunted, apparently, by smug liberal elites. Here's a clip.
Why would they do something like that?
Same reason elites do anything, because they think they're better than us.
Yeah, but why you? I mean, it seems so personal, right?
What, you think it's our fucking fault?
No, that's not what I'm... No, I would never blame the victim. Yeah. There'd have to be a reason is all. Can you think of anything at all, no matter how minor, that might make somebody want to try something as... Oh! 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 Oh my God! Oh!
Yeah, and there were two clips.
What's going on there?
Well, there were two clips we had, and they both ended up that. Then something unexpected sort of violent happened. So, if you remember, the film was originally slated to be released last year, and then it was the release was pulled. There was some outrage about the subject matter. A bunch of people said this is really, really offensive. Trump tweeted without ever naming the film, saying, in relation to Hollywood, we're going to be very tough with them. Hollywood are treating conservatives very unfairly. Hollywood is really terrible. You talk about racist. Hollywood is racist. What they're doing, the kind of movies they're putting out is very dangerous. And they like to call themselves elite. They're not elite, blah, 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 blah. And then he said the movie's coming out in order to inflame and cause chaos. They create their own blah, blah, blah. Okay? Well, remember that this is the man who objected to Parasite winning Best Picture on the grounds that it was Korean, and also wanted a return to the days of Gone with the Wind.
Yes, I remember.
So as a movie criticism goes, I don't think we'd ever look towards Donald Trump. However... there was no suggestion that he'd seen the film. It was just to do with the publicity about it. It's one of these things kind of got out of hand, and then the thing was pulled. It's also worth remembering that there's kind of echoes in all this of that business with the interview. When you remember when the interview was going to come out, and the North Korean government said that if it was released, their reaction would be stern and merciless, and then it came out, and everyone. Oh. So in the case of this, of course. The movie has now been released with the tagline, the most talked about movie of the year is one that no one has actually seen. Decide for yourself. And then September 27th crossed out March the 13th. And unsurprisingly, the film is not the film that its detractors said that it was when they hadn't seen it. For the publicity, it's like saying, oh, Lord of the Flies is a film about, isn't it great for kids to gang up on each other? That's not what it's about. It's actually a satire on stereotypes of, in inverted commas, liberal elite and, in inverted commas, deplorables, and how in the current environment, untruths can become apparent facts due to fake news. So if it takes sides either way, I would say actually broadly, dramatically, the liberal elite, in inverted commas, come out of it worse than and I hate to keep doing this, in inverted commas, deplorable. So the hunters come off worse than the hunted. There's all this stuff about them talking about PC terms and eating hummus whilst hunting. Jason Blum, who's a producer, has said that the movie as we have it now is exactly the same as the movie that it was before. And apparently, in the wake of the release of Joker, which did incredibly well, the sort of controversy about the film seems less controversial because Joker was a film that also had a lot of controversy but did really well. You might also think of David Cronenberg's Crash. There was all that controversy about it, and then it was the release was delayed for ages. Then it finally came out. I remember the posters, restrictions lifted. And then nobody went to see it because actually people aren't that interested in, we couldn't see it, now we can. It's like, And despite a couple of good performances, Hilary Swank, Betty Gilpin, it's not sharp or funny enough to sort of sustain its central idea. And I have some of the same reservations about it that I had with, with Compliance, that somewhere in there's an idea that might be quite interesting, but it's it's far more ordinary than it would need to be to kind of make the press. And my suspicion is that it will just come and go in the same way as something like it's a film that it isn't the film that obviously people who hadn't seen it but reacting to the publicity images in advance said it was. It isn't that film. It's a different film. It's not a particularly good different film, but it's not a particularly bad different film. It's just not a particularly great different film. It's just a kind of pretty blunt, modern rerun of Most Dangerous Game with some pretty blunt, pretty broad political satire on both sides. Not much of which really strikes home, which is odd considering that the targets are so broad, So,
Yeah.